Right, so I wanted to come in today and just talk about something that's been on my mind for a little bit. I wanted to kind of go into more detail on it and kind of talk about it for a while, for a little bit. Square Enix, video game company, one of my favourites, if not possibly my favourite video game company. They've put out some of my favourite games. I love Final Fantasy. Kingdom Hearts is my favourite video game franchise ever. But I want to talk about some games that they've put out recently and some cause for concern and some, I just feel like they've kind of lost, or they're in this kind of weird stasis, kind of. And while I can only really think of one game that Square Enix has put out recently that I really enjoyed, and that was commercially, critically, and a major success, and that was Final Fantasy VII Remake. I really loved that, and it was my favourite game of 2020, and a lot of people share that opinion, and I just feel like it's the only game they've put out recently, they've attached their name to recently, outside of Final Fantasy XIV, but that's an MMO, it's a very different case. I don't play it, I want to play it, it's something, it's on my to-do list, but it's an MMO, once I start, it's such a big thing for me that I'm very anxious to get into Final Fantasy XIV, but there was once upon a time where Square Enix was at the top of the world, in when Kingdom Hearts started, Final Fantasy VII, all of the Final Fantasies after that were huge, and Kingdom Hearts came out, that was huge as well. It was this big conglomerate of two massive IPs, Disney and Final Fantasy, and it was this kind of dream match made in heaven, and spawned my love of not just video games in general, but my love of RPGs, action RPGs and JRPGs, and outside of that, my love of anime. And I've always loved comic books. But getting into manga, which is still something that I'm tiptoeing around, because again, it's a massive world that I am very anxious to get into, as well as anime. I love that aesthetic, and I love anime style things, and obviously I love JRPGs, and I love RPGs as a thing as well. But anime as a thing, I'm really hesitant to get fully into it, and I don't know where to start. I watched Castlevania, I loved Castlevania, but that is it's a Western anime anyways, but what is an anime? That Transformers show on Netflix, the Siege one, apparently that's an anime. It's not animated like an anime, but apparently it is. But yeah, that's getting off topic. In recent years, I've found, not just me personally, because a lot of the games that I'm going to talk about, I've liked, but they've not done well critically, they've not done well commercially, there's been a lot of uproar about them, and that is Final Fantasy 15. I feel like that was the start of it. Final Fantasy 15, I like the game. I don't love the game. It didn't hit me as much as something like a Kingdom Hearts did, or a Kingdom Hearts 2 did, but I enjoyed it. I had fun playing it, but the problems come out with that being a very shallow story that didn't really have the the writing or the character depth that we kind of got from like a Final Fantasy VII or any of the Final Fantasies that had come before. It felt like a very watered down Final Fantasy, and the combat didn't really sit well with a lot of people. Again, I like the game, but a lot of people don't. And then you have the problem with all of the DLCs and all of the paid content that you have that was such a big part of that game. And like a lot of people just felt very, and me included, whenever a game has a lot of DLC, and whenever like you have to play the DLC to get a full, like, rich kind of experience with the game, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. The other one is Kingdom Hearts 3. I love Kingdom Hearts 3. I fully admit it stands up with, it's one of the best 3 in the series for me. The numbered games in the Kingdom Hearts series are among some of my favourite games of all time. But I do understand it took way too long to come out. By the time that it came out, it just came out with a bit of a, it was a very, like, hoorah, and then we all kind of forgot about it. Me, I haven't gone back to Kingdom Hearts 3 since beating it the first time. I played half of it on Twitch, and then, the story, what happened there. One of the videos that I put out about it got flagged and got blocked before it was even uploaded, and I just gave up with it then. I haven't gone out and played it in my free time since, because a lot of things with that game just took me the wrong way, and the entire, like, Arendelle level is just one of the worst in the series. But outside of that, I really like Kingdom Hearts 3, but again, there's a problem with DLC, paid content, and having the best content like behind a paywall. Like, all of the dark battles, you've got to pay for them, and yes, it's a fairly cheap thing. You get the one DLC and you get everything with it, but Remind is just the last, like, 2 hours of the story, just again, but with some extra cutscenes put in. And the dark battles it's just a boss rush. It's a really fun boss rush, and it's like the most challenging thing that you will ever find in any Kingdom Hearts game. So much so that I've beaten 0 of them so far, and that game has been out for 3 years at this point, and I've beaten none of the dark battles, probably because I haven't actually attempted any of them. I'll probably do them on stream. I'm doing the Kingdom Hearts marathon over on Twitch right now for the 20-year anniversary. So, if you want to see me rage at dark battles, go over to my Twitch, but a link in the description. But a lot of people had a problem with Kingdom Hearts 3. They thought it was too easy. They thought there was a lot of problems. Me, I thought it was a watered down Kingdom Hearts 2 with a lot more flash, but a lot less substance. More style, less substance. And I hate that about games. I hate that about modern games in general. Gotta show off this cup. It's such a good cup. I found that when unpacking. I didn't realise I had it, or I forgot that I had that cup, and then while unpacking I just found it, and I was like, that's really cool. I'm going to drink tea exclusively out of this cup forever. But that's getting off topic. And then we have games like, and kind of why I'm making this video is, you guys know my opinions on Marvel's Avengers, and Babylon's Fall came out a couple days ago, and it's come out to a horrendous, just whimper. And it's two very established game manufacturers. It's two very established companies. It's Square and Platinum. And people love Square. People love Platinum. But this is just one of the most watered down RPG kind of looter experiences I think anyone could ever have in a game. It's so bland, and the game just looks ugly. That's the thing. The game just looks ugly. And I guess I haven't played Babylon's Fall because it's fucking full price, and I'm not paying full price for a game that I'm not going to enjoy. I know I paid full price for Marvel's Avengers, but I've also made a channel surrounded about Marvel's Avengers, and I enjoy the game. I like the game as much as I have problems with it, as much as I rag on it for not having enough content. At a core, that game is kind of solid. It's okay. I don't think you need to rag on it just because it's a looter. I feel you can rag on it for not having enough content. You can rag on it for being buggy. You can rag on it for a lot of reasons. But, the core gameplay being bad and the gameplay loop being bad, that's just false. That's just incorrect. But, that's subject to opinion. Anyways, and, I enjoy the game that we got. Is it the game that I wanted? Not necessarily. But is it good as it is? Yeah, it's fine. I come into it and come out of it where I go, but critically that game didn't do well, and financially the game hasn't done well. It's got a core player base, but outside of that, it's not the juggernaut that Final Fantasy XIV is, and it's not the juggernaut that Destiny is. It's not the juggernaut that even something like Rainbow Six Siege is, or these other looters. It's not a Borderlands 3, even though Borderlands 3, no one talks about it anymore, and at least people are still talking about Marvel's Avengers. They're talking about how crap it is, but they're talking about it still. Bad press is still press. But, this is just, it's kind of sad for me to see this company that I once loved, and there was this news story that I saw, which was like apparently one of the people working on Kingdom Hearts 3 was being groped in the workplace and basically didn't have a way out. How true that is, I don't know. And a few years ago, and that situation has more than likely been settled with and Babylon's Fall and Marvel's Avengers. The problems with them probably aren't Square Enix's fault, or maybe they are Square Enix's fault, and why Square Enix would want to go into the looter market when it's, usually a story-based like game company, and that's where its bread and butter is, in building stories and cultivating these epic worlds, and falling into that loop of just being generic looters, a new generic looter every couple years which tarnishes another big name as well. I don't think that would be what Square Enix would want. I don't see that being the case anyway. I'm in the minority mindset where I think most of the games that are talked about, most of the games being talked about that I'm talking about, I enjoy. I find much more good in these games than most people do. But I'm just thinking, as a gamer, and being in the community that the communities that I am, I see a lot of the problems and a lot of the bad decisions that Square Enix is making. Another one, by the way, Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise. Why put a non why put a non why put a Souls-like, why put it out in the same month as Elden Ring? Why? Just why? Why put a From Software Souls-like game in the same... Why put it out in the same month as Elden Ring? And also, why make it a PlayStation exclusive the same month as Elden Ring? It's like if the new this new Marvel game, what is it, Midnight Suns. It's like if Midnight Suns released the same month or the same week as Gotham Knights. You know, what game do you think is going to do better, Midnight Suns or the Batman game? Which game do you think is going to do better? Probably Midnight Suns, because of the Marvel IP, and Gotham Knights doesn't have Batman in it. It's got all the Batman villains, it's got all the Batman side characters, but no Batman, you know, as we know of. But yeah, I just see a lot of, they do have, Square does also have some other IPs coming out, and Final Fantasy 16 is being made as we speak. There is one good video about it, which shows off a little bit of gameplay, and it looks like Devil May Cry. So it's a Devil May Cry style Final Fantasy game. It's going to be like a mix between 15, 7 Remake, and Devil May Cry, which seems, if it is that, awesome. My faith in Square Enix is somewhat rekindled, but you know, that game is so far away, and it's like, is that going to be a return to form for Final Fantasy and for Square Enix, or is it going to be another Final Fantasy 15 where it's just fun? And what a lot of people come to expect from Square Enix and from Final Fantasy is more than just fun. They want to be immersed into a world, and games like Babylon's Fall, games like Marvel's Avengers, games like Kingdom Hearts 3, games like Final Fantasy 15, they don't do a good job of immersing you into a world and making you care about the characters in it, especially Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers just does not care about the characters that are in it. It just wants to be this kind of looter that brings out some decent content every so often with a new character that's fun to play, but just kind of is there to be someone to play as. You know, that game just cares nothing for its story, and it just seems the exact opposite of what I know Square Enix to be. And it feels like Square Enix now have become the opposite of what they were 10, 20 years ago. And it's sad to see it, and hopefully Strangers of Paradise is good. Hopefully it's good. It looks good. I'm excited for it. but also, why the fuck did you put it out in the same week as the same month as Elden Ring? If you put it out in the same week as Elden Ring, that game would be annihilated. But thankfully, it's coming out at the end of the month, and Elden Ring came out last week, so you know you're okay with it there. But you know, why put out a Souls-like game in the same month that From Software is releasing Elden Ring? Why? But that's my tangential rant over. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with what I'm saying, if you've also spotted these kind of spotted that Square Enix has kind of gone downhill recently. They've kind of dropped the ball with a lot of their games, their IPs, with a lot of their... They just haven't got the same... A lot of the games that they've brought out recently just don't have the same spark, the same, you know, charm, the same heart that they had back in the early 2000s, and back when, you know, when I was a wee lad. But I've played all of those games, and the only one that's come out in the last few years that I would say captures the same feeling that I had the first time I played Kingdom Hearts, the first time I played Final Fantasy X, even the first time I played a Square Enix game at all, was Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that again is a remake of a game that I haven't played. But yeah, I really want Strangers of Paradise to do that for me, to put me back in that Square Enix, holy shit, this is a great game mindset. And with it being a Soulsborne game, I don't think it's going to have the same impact on me as something like a Kingdom Hearts, something like Final Fantasy X did. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with what I said, if you don't agree, if you think that the games that I've listed are absolute masterpieces, if you think that the games I've listed still have that same spark that I've become Gordon Ramsay, that same spark that they had in the early 2000s and even way back in the 90s, before I was even a thought. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video where I'm talking about hopefully something a bit more positive. If you want to see me play some good Square Enix games, head on over to my Twitch. I'm doing a Kingdom Hearts marathon, currently playing through Birth by Sleep because I just started the marathon this week. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. I'll see you guys on Twitch. Peace.